Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and a member show to the GMP Morning Show.
Olá Bom Dia ALEGRIA, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, live stream and podcast. My goodness, isn't spring tiring? Wow, we did it, everybody. Let me just announce and congratulate the fact that spring is here officially, and largely because of our efforts here on the Good Morning Portugal show. You're watching the Bom Dia Daily, the first 20 minutes of the Good Morning Portugal show, where we have a look at the news, the culture, maybe the weather. I've got some beautiful pictures for you that shows you what the weather was like here in Portugal yesterday. And you know what? I was asked on British television, with many hundreds of thousands of people viewing on This Morning, and it's an interesting backstory to that, whether there are 300 days of sunshine here, and so many things flashed through my head as Jake, the presenter, said to me, so I understand there's 300 days of sunshine here, and I couldn't just say, yes, of course there are. I said, well, and you'll be able to see my answer in just a moment. How are you this morning? Lovely to see you. Jackie, the Portuguese, already here. All right. It's already 1 minute past 8. Carl with a K there. Thank you very much. Isn't it obvious? You know, it's funny, isn't it? I guess it's all about how, when people have an idea in their head, if in someone's head I am Carl with a K, that's how they're going to spell it, right? It's funny, and we all do it to each other, don't we? Interestingly enough, Coach Turner was in at 7:48 this morning. Bom dia, Campos e Feliz Quarta. It's hump day already, yes. The temperature is due to be 16 degrees in the UK, and that part of it anyway. So Mrs. T and I will be heading out for a long walk later on around Hertford. Have a great day. Thank you, Coach Turner. Did you see, Coach, that Claire McGonigal is joining us on Friday? She's joined our wellbeing team. And she has a fabulous YouTube channel, which she'll tell us all about. So more fitness coming into the community. I don't think we can have enough fitness and different angles on how to stay fit and well as we enjoy our years here in Portugal. Bom dia, Carl and Campos, from a nippy 4 degrees overnight Belfast, dry, and was a brilliant 15 degrees, holding on to great spring weather until Saturday in Belfast, then rain. 4 millimeters has fallen in March, our second driest March ever since records began. And that was what, 3 years ago? No, I wonder how far do the records go back, Deagle? Bom dia Alegria, not to the Ark, presumably. Bom dia Alegria from Corteira. Oh my goodness, Anna, I have to show you your photos. I make it sound like an onerous duty. It is the opposite of that. Thank you so much. What a delight! What a delight! And I'm continuing to do the work as suggested by Neville Goddard, and this is proof alone. That what you focus on, you magnify and bring into your life. So life is good. And here are some pictures from the Algarve to prove it. Let me just load these up because I've got lots of lovely springtime pictures to share with you as well. And this whole thing about dirty cash here in Portugal. Hilarious news item this morning from Euro Weekly News. We don't often go there for news, but it was something that was reported on in the Portugal news, so I went straight to the source. But here are your beautiful pictures, Anna. Let's dwell on these for a moment. Isn't that wonderful? Absolutely beautiful. The legend for that. You are a legend, and your words about it are a nice photo. It's more than nice. From last night's sunset from Quarteira. Did you have a nice day? If you're here in Portugal, how was your day? And the moon this morning. That's the moon I'll show you now. The moon, a sliver of a thing. In the sky this morning. What time was that, Anna? That probably wasn't that long ago, was it? Thank you so much. Pictures, videos, messages, please, on WhatsApp, 913-590-303. Let me do that again, 913-590-303. And maybe slower, 913-590-303. That's sounding a lot like radio and TV. Now, I was on British television yesterday. This is a funny old world, isn't it? We went from, what would it be? In the morning, 20 or 30 people watching live, and people watched later, and we'll get an audience for each daily show of between 100 and 200. Suddenly, and this is how I discovered myself how many people I was in front of on British television yesterday morning, and I will show you the video. I was asked by the wonderful Kit, Sam and Kit, but Samantha, who you saw on the show, who's published the book about chair dancing, which is, I believe, on Routledge, if I remember correctly, and it's being published all over the world. Her wonderful guide to chair dancing, chair-based dancing, seated dance, I should call it, seated dance. And she said, we've got the British TV coming over. Do you fancy being part of it? Well, you know me. Yes. Where do you want me? And yeah, I'm happy to get involved. And it became very real. The day I was told to be there at, I think, 10:30. I like to be early for things, generally speaking. I don't know if that's your experience of me or not. Not this morning, right? 1 minute past 8, Portuguese. I like to be early. Went for me, if I can get a chicken pie in the morning to go with a galau or a meia de leite, that's my breakfast. And that's where I had it. And look, that's how the day began here in San Martinho de Porto yesterday. And actually later on in the day, this is what it looked like. This is the Atlantic Road going looking towards Foz de Relho, the Berlinga Islands there, Berlinga Islands, over towards the Óbidos Lagoon, Foz de Relho. It's a fantastic road. It's incredible. And in Caldas de Rainha yesterday, there was a sea of daisies in the park, in the Dom Carlos Park. Absolutely beautiful day yesterday. And that's how it began in San Martinho de Porto yesterday morning. And finally, when it's a funny old world, isn't it? I mean, there I am. It turns out on British TV, and part of my morning was to go and put some laundry on. We've got a bit of a build up in the. There's a lot of kids here, and there's a lot of washing to do. So I thought I'd just do a bit in the laundrette whilst hanging about in town waiting for the TV crew. It's a glamorous life, so put some clothes into the laundrette as well whilst I was waiting. And eventually we stood on the beach with the TV crew. Fantastic bunch of folks. Really, really enjoyed meeting them and talking to them about how they managed to do a live broadcast. We're all about the live broadcasting here and outside broadcasting. They, yesterday, were broadcasting back to the UK on the mobile network. I discovered that the way they do it is that they have a kind of dongle that it consists of 8 SIM cards that splits the signal up and can deliver it back to the UK or probably anywhere in the world that's connected to the network, the mobile phone network. These 8 SIM cards just break it up digitally and have the moving pictures, the movie pictures going back to the studio with just a 1 second latency in very high quality. So it was really great from that point of view to find out a little bit more and hang out with some big boys in the broadcasting world. And I'm on the beach, and we've been told what we're going to do, and there's been a bit of a rehearsal, and we get to meet the star of the show, Jake. It was a really nice bloke. And they were, I think, enjoying being here. They're working, of course. They don't get time to enjoy the beach like we do. But they got some great footage, and they managed to do what they wanted to do. And I didn't really know who they were, so I whispered over to Sam, "Okay, what is this for?" And she said, "Oh, it's this morning. ITV's this morning." It didn't matter to me. I'd be happy to be involved and see what was going on and have a bit of fun. And it's like, this morning. Yes, this morning, 700,000 people watched this show in the UK. Hence my message on Facebook. Let's find out who watches this morning. And so that did go through my mind. Oh, okay, this is live and it is for this morning. And 700,000 people allegedly watched this show with Kat Deely as the presenter, Ben Shepherd, I think. It was the show, of course, where Holly and Pip were presenters until all of that awful business. Anyway, here's from a 2-hour TV show. This is my bit from yesterday, if I may indulge myself and share with you how I was sharing the Silver Coast and experience of life here in Portugal, and specifically in San Martinho de Porto.
And I've got Carl over here. Carl, how are you doing, buddy? I've heard you're the main man out here. You know a bit of everyone, don't you?
Well, I organise a few meetups out here, yeah.
For the Brits that come out here, you organise those meetups?
For the Brits, for sure, and, yeah, local Portuguese people as well.
What brought you out here, Carl?
Well, it's not a bad view, is it?
I mean...
I drove in 7 years ago. We're in our camper van. We drove from the UK, came to the street here, saw this view and fell in love with the place immediately.
And 100 grand, good way to start out here?
I think you could probably enjoy a few happy hours. Looking at the sunset here.
I like how you went straight to beers, Carl. I love that. Guys, if you want to win 100 grand and maybe relocate to Portugal like Carl and like Kit, your entries in. £100,000. What do you think of that, guys? Samantha loves it. Guys, get your entries in. Be really quick. I'll see you in a bit. Back to you guys. I'm off to go build a sandcastle. Bye, guys. Come on, guys.
Best of luck with that. Hi there, welcome back. Time to check on Jake, who has been spending his morning chatting to expats on the beach in Portugal. Hey there, Jake.
Hey Ben, you all right? I'm not on the beach anymore, but I've got a view to show you in a second. That's right, I'm bringing you £100,000 from Portugal. The competition ends on Friday at 3 p.m, so you've got to be quick with this one. Get your entries in, all tax-free cash. Now, look at this view, Ben. Kat, look at this. How beautiful is that? Just imagine waking up every single morning to that view with a nice coffee in your hand. Carl's been doing that for 7 years, hasn't you, Carl?
I have, yeah, absolutely love it.
So I've heard, in Portugal, 300 days of sunshine, is that right?
Mostly, yeah. It's been a bit of a wet winter this year, to be fair. But look at it now. All is forgotten.
And what about better cost of living?
No question.
And better standard of living?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
What's your favourite thing about being out here, Carl?
It's the culture and the people. It's a very friendly, very safe culture. Great place for my kids to grow up.
Amazing. And so if somebody won £100,000 and you had to give them a little bit of advice about moving to Portugal or moving abroad, what would you say to them?
I'd say get on with it.
That's it.
Yeah,
simple
really
as that.
crack on. Yes, invest that money in moving abroad and come and enjoy something like this.
There you have it, guys. Get on with it. If you win the money, you've got to enter first to win the money. Here are all the details. Get on with it. Like Carl says, just get on with it. Enter the competition.
Showbiz! How about that? Fantastic. Thank you this morning. Thanks, Sam and Kit, for the opportunity. It was so interesting. Yes, they had a big dongle. Portuguese has only got a little dongle, as it turns out. But, you know, you can dream. You can dream. Dream big. Portuguese. And yeah, it was really great fun to be involved in that and reiterating there, Hugh, the quality of life thing. And I think it was my answer about the 300 days of sunshine was fair, was it not? I said, what's that? I said, get on with it. Move to Spain, says Mr. S. Very cool. Yes, it was. You'd have loved the kit, T-Duck. They had some fantastic kit. And thank you, Mike and Karen. Great interview, Carl. It was really good fun. Always knew you were a superstar, says the coach. And here are some lovely pictures as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Samantha and Kit. There's Samantha, and there's Kit at the back, and we've got Jake doing the dancing. It's a seated dance, which is wonderful. That's how it all began. Interest in Samantha's book about seated dance there. So thank you, Samantha and Kit, for getting me involved. There they are again. And there's the cameraman, the crew, a lovely camera. Oh, my goodness. And there's me having a chat with Jake on the edge of town there. Gary's joining us in a moment. Gary, you'll see. I don't think you've been to San Martino yet, have you? But you will see this lovely village here. So we'll see you in about 6 minutes. Gary Coulton joining me this morning. And we hope to have Stewart Noakes as well. But Stewart's in a difficult time zone. So we will check in with the Canopy community. And get you up to speed on some information actually about if you're a founder of a company, if you're a one-man brand, one-woman brand, and it's all about you and your startup, a little bit of support and help and insights from it's an article called Startup Culture over there at the Canopy community on Substack. Gary and I are on Substack as well and loving that experience. We might talk about that this morning as well. What an incredible platform Substack is. We've got some lovely comments. I want to talk to you about dirty cash as well. Good morning to you, Pam Smith. How are you this morning? Pete, your comments are noted, of course. You wouldn't expect me to splatter them over the video output I just shared there. Be nice. Carl, the first recorded weather in Ireland was January 1682 in Kilkenny. It sounds like the start of an Irish story, doesn't it? That's roughly centre of Ireland, was found in a diary the guy wrote. First recorded weather in a diary in 1682. Really? We'll Google it later. 'Tis wet. Maybe. It's a little damp this morning, so it is. And João Ernesto in with a slightly Irish, slightly pirate, obviously in 1682. Bom Dia ALEGRIA, Portugal as well. And who's this? I think I remember these people. Does anyone else remember Lord and Lady Travancore? Vague memory. Just we're only kidding. Great to have you back from Lake Como, Italy, named after the popular singer Perry Como. Of course. Bob Wenger in this morning. Bon dia todos. Up, stretched. Who doesn't like to be up and stretched first thing in the morning? Barefoot grounding and balanced. He's had a passive hang this morning. Rocking and rolling today. It's a great day to be. Woohoo! Not at all. What's this? Not okay. Not all is rainbows and unicorns, but I choose. Yeah, well done, John. Seriously, the work of Neville Goddard. Oh my goodness, everything is about focus. I choose today to focus on the positive, Pam, and I finally have our IRN appointments in Vienna tomorrow. Woohoo! Well done. Enjoy your meeting with IRN. What else? What's the alternative? Basically, and. A couple more comments then before we have a look at this dirty cash. Oh, where were you, Lee? Did you miss my This Morning segment there? Who is Gary? You'll find out in just a moment. Portuguese, you mentioned him yesterday. You hung out with him last week. It was the meeting which you called the ADHD support group, which wasn't the scheduled title, but I guess it turned into that, and we're having another one soon as well. Greetings from the Algarve. Sun at last, although still very cold. Elaine, lovely to see you this morning. And Carl, BBC Stopping Blue Peter, a childhood memory from the 1970s. Sounds like you're not over it yet. But Blue Peter, I think, went beyond the 1970s, didn't it? Is that when it stopped for you, Deagle? Right, okay. Oh, and Mel, good morning to you. Lovely feedback from your segment on our YouTube channel from yesterday, Mel. Right, just quickly then, Dirty Cash. This is a very interesting article. We go to Euro Weekly News for this. Somewhere we don't go very often, but it can be a good source. I think mainly for Spain. Oh, hold on, that's not the right one. Mainly for Spain rather than Portugal. But sometimes there's an interesting bit of Portuguese news, as there is this morning. So if I can actually get it on the screen, I will share it with you. Yes, burying cash cost Portugal millions, apparently. This is a funny old habit. Popping it onto the screen now. And we've got the headline, yeah, burying cash cost Portugal millions. This was published a few days ago. Over the last decade, the Bank of Portugal has been inundated with deteriorated banknotes as a result of people burying cash or stashing it in risky places. Ooh. Since 2014, the central bank has exchanged more than 317,000 damaged notes worth around, and that's the deal, isn't it? If you've got a damaged note, you can take it back to your local central bank, I suppose, and get it exchanged for a good one if it appears to be a kosher note, that is, worth around, check this out. So those damaged notes since 2014, just over 10 years, 13.8 million euros, many of which were unearthed after being hidden underground, which begs the question, how much more is there out there? Buried or hidden, how cash ends up ruined in Portugal. Most of these notes are ruined by humidity when people bury them. Yes, like everything else at times here in Portugal. Moldy money, explained José Luis Ferreira, coordinator of Banco de Portugal's operational area. Interesting titles. Insects, soil, moisture, and time cause irreversible damage, as it does to us all. While burying money is the most common cause, creativity knows no bounds. Forgotten stashes have been found in microwaves, fireplaces, and even septic tanks. Pooh! So Ferreira suggests the practice often stems from distrust of banks or a need to feel prepared for emergencies. Now, we were doing a house sit. And we thought, because the homeowners said to us, oh, just help yourself to what's in the freezer, the fridge and freezer. Opened up a box of ice cream. There's 1,500 euros in there. A good example. And of course, we told them that they'd forgotten their 1,500 euros. I think it was something like that. There's a lot of money in there. Anyway, all we wanted was a nice bit of, vanilla ice cream, some gelado baunilha in there, but there was cash instead. So here we go. In 2024 alone, over 40,000 damaged banknotes were exchanged, the highest figure in a decade. It's interesting, isn't it? Amounting to 1.7 million. Most were... do they file a report? It's interesting, isn't it? And I guess if people were trying to hide the money, having to take it into the bank might be a little stressful for them. Most were 20 and 50 notes. The rise follows a pandemic-era spike as people chose to keep more cash at home during uncertain times. It's what humans do. After the pandemic, we saw people coming in with damaged notes, seeking to recover their value, Ferreira said. Past events have also fueled this trend. In 2018, the devastating fires of 2017, over 32,000 notes were recovered, totaling more than 1.7 million, including one case where a sawmill owner lost 40 grand to a safe damaged by flames. Lucky not to lose it. I mean presumably it's just charred. The process of evaluating damaged notes is rigorous and consistent across the Eurozone. To be refunded, more than 50% of the note must be present and identifiable as genuine, in case you need to know. Advanced Portuguese developed software aids the team in analyzing fragments to ensure authenticity. What a stressful process, and prevent fraud. We sometimes receive sophisticated forgeries disguised as damaged notes, but our robust control process catches them all. Got to catch them all. For now, the Bank of Portugal continues to advise against keeping large sums of money hidden away at home, especially underground. People still believe it's safer, Ferreira adds, but it comes at a high price. Thank you, Euro Weekly News, for that. Hilarious and interesting too. We go now. Sorry to keep you waiting, Gary Coulton. We're going to bring you onto the screen now. Now you'll remember him, Portuguese. A nice big round of applause. Morning, Gary.
Good morning, sir.
It would be indelicate and rude of me to ask you if you stash any money underground. It's a gentleman's secret, I think, if that's the case. But actually, you know what? Not far from you, a friend of my father owned a friend of my father's owned a pub, and he hid some money up a chimney. And sadly, one of his staff thought it was a bit chilly one day. And what a silly place! Not far from you, actually. Sorry, the New Inn up the road from you. One of the New Inn.
Hot money, then, is it?
Hot money, right? Oh yes, yes, Gary. Starting as you mean to go on. How are you?
Better. As you know, I've had a bit of a viral infection, but today, yeah, we're okay. So
you and me both, right? It was funny, wasn't it? We both went down with something after meeting last week. How do you deal with it? I mean, I found it quite an interesting. I don't like being ill, but I tend to go on a sort of shamanic journey with it when I'm feverish and hallucinating. I'm thinking, what will the cosmos bring me in this altered state? Do you have anything like that?
I'm more of the scientist.
Of course you are. Yes, go on. Tell me about it. Yeah.
So I tend to ask myself the question, what's that? Or I go, that's fascinating, that next ache. The transitions from the snotty nose to the aching muscles and joints.
Yeah.
And that way I don't get engaged as much in feeling ill.
Yeah.
Because you objectify it.
Oh, very good. Transcendental approach there.
It's not what my wife will say, of course, but
no, because from her point of view, you're lying on the sofa, moaning and groaning and needing a constant attention, presumably. Yeah.
I suspect it was probably my fourth bout of COVID, to be honest.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, the symptoms were exactly the same as I had in the first month of the COVID pandemic.
Ah, right, okay.
Weird, not the typical stuff. But...
No, it's like everything, it's evolving. I think it has its own life and personality, doesn't it? And going through an evolutionary process, hopefully, like we all are. In many ways. And you and I meet now on a fortnightly basis, in a way, I suppose, to track the evolution of humanity. And it's our own little check and balance, isn't it, on the progress of humanity, with a lovely new idea, the Positive Echo podcast. Now, for those who weren't there for our first recording or didn't see it, because actually it was recorded offline, wasn't it, and we released it, could you familiarize our audience here in the mornings with the idea of the Positive Echo, please?
It'd be my pleasure. The first thing is, it's not that just being nice.
Yes.
If you're just nice, people will walk over you, and you walk over yourself. So it's not about being nice only.
Yes.
And as you know, it stemmed from a question my late father asked me shortly before he died. And so pin your lugholes back and listen carefully. He said to me, Gary, who do you want to come to your funeral? And what was it you did for them that would make them want to come?
Nice.
Now, I would be dead. I don't care if they come or not, but I quite like the idea that I'd done something for them earlier that might make them want to come. And this got me thinking. People won't want to come if you force them. If you pay them, you coerce them. They'll only want to come if you've made a positive change in their life. And you can't leave it till the last minute. There's no deathbed transformations.
Yeah, you're not in the best state, are you, to inspire people possibly at that point?
So whether the people who are watching this morning take it this way, you and I are doing our level best to leave a positive echo for the rest of the day. And when I and then you leave the room, hopefully some of that positive echo will keep reverberating in your listeners and viewers' minds and hearts. What they do with it is their issue, not mine. So it's not about control. It's not about trying to influence people. It's trying to open doors to things that they may not have seen or felt before.
And we can all do it for each other, can't we? I mean, there's nothing special about us, is there? There's something special about this process, I think.
I'm
consider
not special.
that we might have this legacy and chuck a stone in a pond and have the ripples that come out. But what a lovely idea, Gary, to have a podcast where we invite people to consider that question and their legacy, I suppose. It's a legacy matter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of stuff happening at the moment about people acquiring wealth pretty much for its own end. And they will leave some kind of echo. But for me, it's more like a nasty taste in the mouth. And that's not envy. I don't need money. I don't need their money. What I need in life is guidance to live a better life. And sometimes you do that and the people who benefit don't even know it's happened to them. So it's not about being famous. It's not about having your name on a library or a student award or something. It's about doing it without asking for anything back. So it's based on something else my parents instilled in me, which is unconditional love. So I might only give people, like this morning, you're getting a little tiny bit of my love, all of you. It's unconditional. I don't expect anything back, except hopefully you might listen to the podcast. And it's for a very small period of time. But it's still unconditional. Once we start putting conditions on things, we have perverted our wish for good. So you just do stuff, leave a book on a station platform. You don't expect anybody to thank you for it, but something will change because of it. And we start at the bottom with the little tiny stuff. We can't afford to try and beat ourselves up by taking on all the world's big problems. The world's big problems are solved by dealing with the small things.
Yes, a micromanagement of our communication, I suppose, and our relationships with each other. Mel's loving it. Love the sound of this. And for Coach Turner, his positive echo. This is great. The frame of this is fantastic. And I think it will appeal to a lot of the Gumpers here. So please join us tonight at 6 as we do a live stream, an hour at 6 this evening, talking about it. As we develop the idea as well, to be fair. And for Coach Turner, that's the very reason he is a coach, to leave that legacy and that imprint on some of the young athletes that are coming through. And I'm sure that's not the only way for you as well, Coach T, but it's a very obvious way for you. Bon Dia Gumper says, James, feliz quarta a todos, como estão? I'm sure this will chime with James as well. If what Gary says about a funeral is true, however, says Jackie, there will be no people at mine, just a million doggies.
Who cares?
It's not species based, is it?
No, I'm not biased against canines, even though I've got 3 felines.
Yes. So that's absolutely fine, Jackie, as well. Gary Austin's here this morning with something a little bit profound as well. As Noah Levine apparently said, unconditional love, absolutely possible. Unconditional relationship, no. Well, I'll just let you read that for yourself on the screen there.
And Noah, you're right. Remember, unconditional love is not about being taken over by somebody else.
Yeah.
It's about being above that kind of thing. And it gives you immense emotional resilience. And from
Yes.
there, you can deal with almost anything.
And it's an intention and an aspiration and a way of being, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think when things sort of petrify into some sort of ideology, it's not as useful necessarily, is it, as an active principle, as a guide, as a way of being in life?
I fail at unconditional love all the time.
Yes, doesn't stop you
because
trying, though, right?
I've been trained by society to
Yeah.
be transactional.
Yes.
But if you can catch yourself doing it on the small things and not be judgmental, self-judgmental,
Yeah.
it becomes easier and becomes more and more unconscious.
Yes.
And in the final analysis, we don't own anything. We're here for a defined period of time. So we might as well aspire to good things rather than bad things. Well,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
my attitude.
Yeah.
I also aspire to honesty. I'm not always honest. It's usually little white lies to protect other people, but it's a form of dishonesty.
Yeah.
One of my other values is smart trust, which is not blind trust, because you get your teeth kicked in if you just blindly trust people.
Yeah.
So it's all about, as you say, aspiring to the things that would make you better.
Yes.
And accepting and learning from when you fall short.
Yeah, well said, well said. And you were talking about self-judgment, and of course, part of our relationship, our developing relationship, is learning about you and your book and your worldview. And the thing that that the Portuguese have mentioned, our meeting the other evening, which was let's call it a neuro-spicy networking evening.
It was interesting.
It was great, wasn't it?
Very interesting.
And I think there are quite a few neurodivergent thinkers in our community here, and that's why you're so welcome here. So we might talk a little bit about different ways of thinking and being as well after we've explored this idea of the positive echo, which I'll repeat is happening tonight at 6. Gary and I will be in conversation again. We might be able to help Gary, the other Gary here. We are on the edge of extinction these days. I think he might not be having the best morning necessarily. But I think it might be up your street tonight. You might find a little bit of uplift and inspiration. What format are you as you envisage this, Gary? What format are you looking for? Do you want examples of this? We want guests to come on and talk about how they're actively doing this.
Look, I am neurodivergent. I acknowledge that at the age of 65, and I'm now 68. My primary behavior, as you may have already guessed, is what they call an info dumper. So if you give me space, I will talk all the time. Hopefully interesting, but I will talk. But I don't learn anything from that. I learn from community and other people's observations of themselves and situations. So our podcast will only thrive with other people contributing, either in comments, or there may be fascinating guests for future podcasts. Who knows? That's what will make it work.
Yeah, and in your Substack as well, you point to a few examples. We discovered, didn't we? You came up with, or you sourced a positive news article, and strangely enough, coincidentally, I was the assistant editor there many years ago, and that was yes, weird as now things were, and they're all about, of course, reporting positive news and documenting these positive echoes that we will continue to talk about as well.
And it isn't necessarily just happy news.
Right. Okay. Say more.
Positive news. It's things that contribute.
Yes.
Game changers, and they can be very small things.
Yeah. How do we find tonight's positive? Yeah, I'll put it out on this channel as well, so you'll be able to find it easily. It'll be everywhere. It'll be it's spread across all my social media output. I use kindness as my guide, says James here, and kindness is not niceness per se. One can be kind and firm and stern and set boundaries as well. That's a useful guide there. Yeah, thank you for that, James, as well. Going back to funerals, and it is a good way to begin the thought process around the positive echo, of course, as you described there with your father's words. For Gary Austin, my ideal funeral would be lots of singing, drinking, eating, dancing, maybe a bit of fighting and some gratuitous sex. And that's just the vicar, presumably, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
A good reflection.
You know what they say, you should always hold your wake before your funeral.
Yes. Now, I don't know if it was you and I that talked about that, or maybe it was M. Mama Bear McGowan, because that's a useful process, isn't it, to really check your assumptions about a lot of things if you were to do that. My concern was doing it too early.
You can always have a second. You know.
I mean, can you just keep doing it every year? Oh, okay, fair enough.
And the thing, you've got this business guy hopefully coming on.
Well, he's not coming. He's not joining us after all. So
okay.
you're
Right,
very
well,
welcome to stay with me till the end. You may have to go.
I'll steal his thunder then, shall I?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead. Yeah.
I spent 10 years as an executive coach, coaching business leaders. And also as a scientist. One of the things about science is you set a hypothesis and then you test the hypothesis. So you have what could be the real finding, but equally it could not be the real finding. And what you would do is engineer backwards from the hypothesis to the present day. And that's how you build your experiments up. In business, you do the same thing. You imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years when it's fabulously successful. And you go, well, what did I do the month before that made it possible to have that success? And then the year before, and then the 3 years before, and suddenly you're today and you built your plan.
Yes.
Life can be very similar. If I want a room full of all the people that I've helped at my funeral, what was it that happened the month before?
Yes.
That I did. The year before that I did. Until you come back to today and you realize the only time you have to do something, positive or negative, is now.
Yes, absolutely.
So now's the time to have the party in your head.
Yes, the party in your head. It's so weird. As I was referring to my shamanic journey, and I went from William Blake during this fever that I had. The words of William Blake, who I suspect you'll be familiar with and appreciate. And it led me into a chap called Neville Goddard. And he was like a lot of these thinkers from the early 20th century, and then through. Actually, he was a little bit later than the Napoleon Hills and James Millman, as a man thinketh. Those sort of writers that seemed quite popular, and there was a hunger for in the United States in the early 1900s. Neville Goddard. It was really weird because I was really surprised. I feel like I know quite a few of these speakers and teachers, but I hadn't heard of him, and he came up through my searching that was happening in an altered state. And he was talking in from 1930s through to the 1970s about a very similar. Well, it echoes what you said. One of his processes was thinking from the end, which is exactly what you said there. And he was about the law of assumption rather than the law of attraction, but very similar principles in there. And just thinking from the end, and have it as so as well. Interestingly, there is no doubt in the mind it is like this, and that manifests itself through the technology of the mind.
I think that the difference is the end needs to be, how do I put it, values driven rather than a practical, tangible outcome, a goal.
Yes.
Because the world changes too fast for us to have one goal.
Yes, indeed.
And when you don't get it, somehow you're an abject failure and you want to kill yourself.
Well, in fact, what he was talking about was how you focus on how you would feel about the life you want, which allows for different tangibilities, doesn't it?
Which is very strange, again, because I've been having this conversation with somebody on Substack for the last 2 or 3 days. And to cut it very short, he said something like, you know, I want to get $1 million. And I said, okay, I'll let you have your $1 million if you can tell me how it will feel when you start spending it.
Yes, very good.
And he just didn't get it. I said, you can't control me. I said, I have no wish to control you, but I might be one of your customers.
Yes.
And I buy off people who I trust. And if money is your only outcome, I can't trust you because you'll go for the money at my expense.
Yes.
So we've gradually.
How did that land, Gary? How's that going?
How does that going?
Yes.
He came back and said, "How might I improve myself?"
Wow. Did that just sort of spark up as a random conversation on Substack?
It was he posted that. I wanted,
Yes.
how do I make my $1 million?
Yeah.
And I was in that mood when you're not.
Well, yeah. Oh, go on then. I'll give this a go. Yes, brilliant.
So I explained to him how he does it, and it's very simple. You spend lots and lots of quality time working out what your non-negotiable human core values are.
Yes. Yeah.
And they can't be money, they can't be power, and they can't be achievement, success, because they're not values, they're endpoints.
Yes.
And then you pick one of your non-negotiables and you just kind of, does it actually fit?
Yes.
Do my behaviors align with the claim that I have unconditional love? And you notice when you do align and when you don't.
Yeah.
And then you change the next week to the next value and so on. So that's the invitation I've given him.
Wow.
And we'll see what happens.
We will, absolutely. I mean, that's always how it is, isn't it? We will see. And what we're doing is tinkering, isn't it? With our, I suppose ultimately it's how we're seeing things. That's all we're ever doing and changing, isn't it? It's how we're seeing things. And then we
Keep
get
your heart open.
Yeah, get the results around us. And to put it another way, as Bob's saying here, the feeling is the prayer from the Gospel of Thomas. Now, you know, the scientific method is very important to you. You describe yourself as a scientist. Would you describe the process you've given to this person on Substack as a scientific process?
Yeah, because it's a human process and science is human.
Yeah.
So just to make this clear about science, when it gets, particularly at the moment, scientists are getting a bad press.
Yeah.
You know, people don't go into science to be evil.
Right.
They go into science because we are innately curious about the natural world and want to understand it. Yep. And from that understanding, maybe contribute something wise that helps other people. That's it.
Yeah.
And so the scientist, the true scientist, not a technician, but a scientist, will say, now I'm looking out of my office window and the sky is, hey guys, blue. Now, the scientist in me goes, I wonder why it's blue.
Yes.
Well, you can't answer that question. In fact, you can't answer any questions. What you can do is test a hypothesis. So the hypothesis is the sky is blue because all the atmosphere absorbs all other wavelengths of light. Well, I can create a machine to test that. So my hypothesis is that. And the answer is yes, no. I don't care whether the answer turns out to be yes or no. I just want an answer. And from that answer, I can then come up with another hypothesis and then another hypothesis. There's no emotion involved in setting up the experiments. The emotion comes when you see something and can prove it for the first time in the world. And I remember that as a student, PhD student, looking down a microscope, and I knew the thing that I saw, no other human had ever seen.
Really? Wow, that must be quite a moment. Yeah.
It's those little tiny steps of no one else has seen this before, and I created the experiment to come up with that answer.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
That's
wouldn't it be lovely to rediscover that or re-emphasize that process and that delight.
Yeah.
Because, and then we can go, I guess, into philosophy. And maybe this is a question for tonight. But is the sky still blue at night, Gary?
It is exactly the same at night as it was in the day.
Yes.
But our perception of it changes.
Thank you. Right. And again, so it
and
comes back.
We don't know what blue is or red.
No, that's a reference point, isn't it? Yeah, that's the word and concept of blue is an agreement, isn't it? It's not an objective fact, interestingly. Yeah. Okay. Well, Good Morning Portugal. We tackle the big. We don't mind going there.
It's only 8:46.
It's only 8:46. More of this tonight at 6. Positive news doesn't focus on the horrible thing that happened. It focuses on the things people are doing to make that horrible thing better. Absolutely. And you continuously try to see if you can prove the hypothesis wrong as well, the scientific methodology.
Totally.
Yep. Perhaps we can make going back to wakes, waking wakes. We could call them waking wakes. We could have a party planning. So we get invited to some fantastic parties, Gary, if we did this as a business.
Oh yeah. A wake planner.
We'd be drunk constantly. Perhaps we can make our birthday celebrations a bit of a wake every year. My 70th was kind of that sort of thing. Celebrate life daily. Wonderful. Where are you? And what time is it? I am here, and it is now. Thank you very much for that little check there. Time check. Notice, choose, act, rinse and repeat. That's James's methodology in life, as we know. True science is not about the ego. Yeah, and I suppose what you described as evil coming into it is where people forget about their positive echo and just become self-interested and not unconditionally loving rather than unconditionally loving. It's very human, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I fully acknowledge human frailty, and we're prisoners of the fact that we like to think we're sophisticated, civilized. We're just as primitive as we were 500,000 years ago.
I think my wife reminds me of that occasionally.
Yeah. We have to acknowledge that, but it's how do we help each other step away from our baser instincts? Yes. And things like constitutions are meant to do that.
Yeah, right. It's work in progress as well, isn't it? And it's never done, is it? This is a process.
You cannot let the foot off the brake.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Elaine's enjoying this conversation this morning. Great conversation, boys. And Gary Austin, other Gary, an insect may see a blue sky as a totally different concept, which I suppose begs the question, is science essentially human? I would say it is in that case.
And let's not forget that there's a significant proportion of women who see colours that men can't.
Really?
Yes, in the towards the ultraviolet.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. How about woke wakes as well? There's another niche for us there. Gary, if we get too exhausted doing particular kinds of wakes, we can niche into that particular market.
Well, they always say you have to niche into markets to exploit them.
The riches are in the niches. You can only say that if you're American, because the riches are in the niches doesn't work so well in the English. Humans have not evolved at the pace of technology. I think that's a fair comment, isn't it? We have in our hands the most alarming technology, and as you say, we're still quite basic at the same time.
We've still got exactly the same bits of brain tissue as we had before. They've not changed. We haven't had time to change. It takes millions of years for us to physically alter.
Yes.
But we are altering within our psyche.
Yeah.
There are genes which control our physical being. And there are memes, thanks to Richard Dawkins, who came up with the original concept of meme.
Yes.
These are heritable behaviors and cultural norms, and these are changing at lightning speed.
Yes.
The question is, are we mentally and emotionally equipped to handle that rate of change?
Yeah, I've got a new suggestion for power. The big debate is, alternative power, nuclear power. I suspect if we could wire up Richard Dawkins and actually take the power that must energy of his suppressed anger that must come from the whole idea of memes having become what they've become. That would probably power a continent, wouldn't it? The energy coming from his.
I'm getting a Monsters Inc. Kind of
Yes,
vibe out of it.
yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me.
Poor old Richard Dawkins. I was not here 500,000 years ago, so I would not know.
But
So
you were.
you say, yes. We may not be able to dump the programming, but we can be rewriting. Oh, again, that is exactly what we're talking about, aren't we? We're talking about our software, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, it comes to, are you aware of the machine you're in, or are you not aware? If you choose not to be aware, we end up with something akin to the Matrix.
Yes.
If we are constantly aware of what's happening inside and outside, we have a bigger chance to do something that's beneficial rather than not.
Yeah. Right. So you mentioned being an executive coach to CEOs, leaders, I think. Just a quick reference then. Stewart can't be with us this morning, but his Canopy community has a fantastic article. I want to talk to you more about neuro-spiciness because you're here and you're live on the show. But there are some wonderful points here that I suspect would resonate with you in the work you did with CEOs and leaders. The founder-centric approach, demystifying this whole sort of hustle culture, success looking different to different people. There are founders who found a business for the sake of founding a business and being a founder. They don't usually last. And actually, the sooner they are out, the better for them, says this writer over at Canopy, who would be Tuana Momirov. As well, founding a startup can be exhausting and stressful. You've got to take care of yourself, and maybe we can take care of people who are running companies a little bit better as well. And being a founder can be a lonely experience. Initially, most founders are actually solo founders until the right co-founder match appears. And there is a beauty in collaboration, which I hope the Positive Echo podcast is a good example of as well. The wonder of collaboration. If you need that, that's on that. Link there in the Canopy community. Right, Gary, neuro-spiciness, thinking differently. Of course, this, as you said, you had I don't know if it was a life-changing, but it was an affirming diagnosis at 65. You are the author of Demons to Champions, how you fell in love with your neurodivergent maverick mind, and perhaps got a whole lot more comfortable with how you think on our being in life. Might you say more about that to us?
I'd be happy to. And I should say, if anybody, because of watching us today, wants to have a conversation, then come over to my Substack, because that's a good, safe environment for people. I don't mean where you can share every last detail. I wouldn't do that. But opinion, insights, etc.
Yes,
it's a very safe space. Anyway, back to Neuro-spicy. Well, as I've said to you before, Carl, I've always known I've thought differently from other people. But when I was a kid, neurodivergent mind types didn't exist. Well, they did, but we didn't know they existed. And because of the experiences I had internally and externally, by the age of 27, I was very seriously considering taking my own life. But I have no idea why, because I married shortly before. I'm still married to Mel. She's fabulous. I've got a great job. We just bought our first flat. Life was going externally wonderfully. Internally, it was collapsing in.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, after huge amount of personal reflection and work and taking on mindfulness and so on and so forth, I came to realize that it was okay to feel and think differently. And it was the secrecy of being ashamed of that idea that was actually corrosive to me. People who met me had no idea that I was having this internal struggle. So by the age of 64, I was beginning to write this book, the manuscript. And there's a whole story behind that, which we probably don't have time for. But anyway, my brother is autistic, diagnosed at age 68. His wife is autistic, diagnosed age 63, I think she was. Their daughter is autistic and ADHD. There's quite a lot of my family, and I'm suspecting both my parents were. And I thought, hang on a minute.
Hang on
And
a
I've done
minute.
a lot of research and reading around neurodivergent mind types. And I thought, I'll take some of these online surveys, and boom. Now, 30 years of being a scientist and working in clinical scenarios only, I know how to diagnose. And as you can see, I went into this very scientifically. The approach was hypothesis. And the hypothesis was, I am not neurodivergent. And every piece of information I could glean, especially about my childhood, said no, that hypothesis is not true. Ergo, I identify as neurodivergent.
Amazing. And from that came the book, which I think has been a great comfort to other people who found themselves in similar situations, right?
I've written it not as an academic, not as a clinician. It's just insights into my journey from 3 years old, pushing buttons wherever I found them, telling shaggy dog stories, as my family would call them, from about 4, all the way up to 18 months ago.
Yeah, amazing.
And I hold nothing back.
Wonderful. And I think you might be too modest to say so, but I think that in its own right is a huge positive echo and a great support for other people.
Almost a plan there.
Yes, that's right. We didn't plan that. And Clever Dickies here might be saying, well, what's this got to do with Portugal on Good Morning Portugal? Well, it's a really great conversation to have, and we'll be having more of the same from 6 o'clock this evening. And there is a great big Portugal connection, actually, in case you're wondering. You'll be here soon, Gary.
I will. I'm getting excited. I'm so glad they had the virus last week and not next week.
Oh, yes. My goodness. Right. I mean, lying on the beach, feverish, speaking to people in the open air, possibly. 5th of April, then, you'll be here at the Storytellers. And, of course, we thank Marco. I thank John Heimbach for introducing me to Marco. I thank Marco for introducing me to you. And you'll be with these fellow well, I guess they're thought leaders, or they have different thoughts, and they'll be sharing their thoughts about what's the umbrella subject here, would you say? Is it a neurodivergence? Is it a mini summit of neurodivergent thought and philosophy?
I think it is. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really yet know the work of the other two people.
Right.
In depth. So I'm not going to comment. I'm going as a what we would call them, a punter. You know,
right, okay.
I'm going to learn as much as I may deliver.
Yes.
I think the idea behind it is more about how to demystify what it is to think differently.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah. And
So,
I would say the world could benefit so much from that. Do you think it's fair to say we are breaking off the shackles? We need to. It's like the dominant thought forms, the thought police, almost literally, of previous decades has served us less and less well. The education system is a good example of that. The workplace is another great example, isn't it, of the lack of accommodation of thinking differently is now before our very eyes being turned from something that's like almost prosecutable and weird and shouldn't be allowed into something that's being encouraged. And I just think that is such a wonderful time to be alive.
It is, and there is the flip side, of course, and we can watch that happening in front of us daily.
Yeah.
There are forces out there who consider things like autism, remembering autism is a universe of things.
Yeah.
As a disease which needs eradicating.
There are people who think that.
Yes. And there are whole organizations based in the US
Right.
who either want a pill,
Yes.
or they want to offer termination because you can maybe detect autism early.
Good heavens above. Blimey. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Now, just let's have a think about this.
Yeah.
It's almost certain that Alan Turing, for example, the inventor of
Yes.
machine computing,
Yes. Father of.
was autistic. He wouldn't have had the purpose to keep going through any adversity.
Yeah.
So you and I would not be sitting here without Alan
Well,
Turing.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly. Yeah. Yeah.
If you look at other historic characters and the way other people wrote about them and described them,
Yes.
their behaviors, you would not have Mozart. You would probably not have Raphael.
By that you mean the artist and not the Ninja Turtle, or maybe both. Maybe both.
Isaac Newton.
Yeah.
Used to have public meltdowns.
Did he?
As an adult. So everything that we see in our modern life has had a major contribution from people who think differently.
Well,
by
absolutely.
definition.
I mean, to me, it's just obvious, isn't it? It's just how it works. I mean, that's, there is the orthodoxy and there's a challenge to the orthodoxy, and you can characterize or diagnose that, but that is just how life seems to work.
Because, and it's really easy for me to flip to the other side and start blaming what we would call the mainstream neurotypical world.
Yeah, yeah.
They have become the mainstream because of their adherence to the tribe mentality.
Yes, yeah.
It was a way of ensuring the tribe survived, was everyone did effectively a very similar thing.
Yeah, yeah. Don't step out of line, right? For your own safety.
But they always had the shaman.
Yes.
Male or female.
Yes.
Who was a little bit odd, eccentric. And they always were the ones that people went to look at the world in a different way.
Yes.
They had connections with different things that the run-of-the-mill group didn't.
Yeah,
and it's based on fear. It's the fear of, if we don't stick together and do exactly the same thing, the world will fall in on us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Whereas your neurodivergent thinker goes, well, let's look at what's out there that will actually remove a lot of that fear.
Or alternatively, Gary, going back to the other Gary Austin, if you think, well, we better not do that because the world will fall in, you might start from the position of, oh, the world appears to be falling in, so maybe we need to think. It kind of turns it around, doesn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're at. I really think that's where we're at the moment.
Most neurodivergent thinkers are what they call bottom-up thinkers.
Right.
And then there are a group who are bottom and top.
Right.
So they look at a situation, so they zoom out, helicopter view.
Yeah.
And they see something that they can't explain. It's not that it's good or bad, they just can't explain it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So they zoom into that and they go in massive detail, put it all back together again and come up with a new way of doing something that avoids the problem.
Very good.
And often they're isolated because they're weird. They don't look you in the eye, or they don't know the social norms. They don't fit in.
Yeah, right.
What tends to happen is that in meetings, for example, they all get shoved to the edges.
Yeah.
And ignored. And everybody knows what the right thing to do is because it's always the same thing that they've been doing.
We've all been to those meetings.
Yeah. And there's a brilliant coach. He's still around. He's getting on a bit. Marshall Goldsmith.
All right.
And he gives away almost everything he's ever written now.
Yeah.
Almost. Except his own time. And he says, what got us here won't get us there.
So true. Einstein says something very similar, I think, right? The thinking of this level, we can't go to the new level with the thinking of this level.
Yeah.
Of the one we're in, the current status, yeah.
So going back to this event, it's and my book.
Oh yeah.
It's an attempt to close the gap.
Yeah.
More to help people who don't understand what it is to think like a neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So and when they've read the book, or they will go to this meeting, or that they read around it, they go, "Is that it?" It's just that you've inherited a few different versions of genes from your family that help you think in this other way. Oh, that's interesting. Can we collaborate?
Yes, absolutely. Well, brilliant. Come and have a great time with us here in Portugal. We had the Portuguese are laughing because he came along to our meeting the other night, which he characterized as a sort of, ADHD anonymous. And he thought it was hilarious that I was trying to close the meeting at whatever it was, 9 o'clock. I said, okay, chaps, we need to finish now. Like 20 minutes later, we were still there. Yeah. And look, we normally finish at 9 o'clock, Gary, in the morning. It's 7 minutes past. I know. And I'm not complaining, I have to say. And it's delightful, isn't it? It's delicious to have sort of timekeeping as a neurotypical obsession. Which actually the Portuguese are very good at challenging, it has to be said. So you'll be in a good culture when it comes to this whole thing about the management of time.
The promise I make is I'm as good a listener as I am a talker.
Excellent. All right. Well, people can experience that in person. If your interest is piqued and you'd like to come along and meet Gary in person and the other two speakers and enjoy San Martino and enjoy the storytellers and meet Marco, because I don't think Marco will be able to hold himself back either. He'll be he'll be taking part in this, won't he?
I am also on the morning after. There's an optional chance to basically go for a walk on the beach with me.
Yeah.
And I will drop a few pebbles in people's calm pools and let them contemplate the result.
Well, that's quite the promise. And if we can get Gary Austin along as well, we might have some drinking, eating, fighting, and some gratuitous fornication. What a weekend! This is fantastic.
I'll let my wife know.
Yeah, definitely. Gary, see you tonight at 6. Yeah. Great conversations, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow morning or tonight at 6. Join us again at 6 o'clock for the Positive Echo podcast. Cheers, Gary. Bye for now. Thanks, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and